In this tutorial video, I'm going to show you how to knit the thumb gusset and the finger shaping. So you can find the pattern at Make One Right or m1rknit.com, and it'll also be in the description. All right, so let's hop into the video. So I've completed this first mitt, so you can see what we're doing here. And then I have my other one ready to go. So this is a magic loop pattern, and I have the stitches divided on my needles here. So I have equal amount of stitches, the front and back. So we're going to start doing the thumb gusset immediately after doing the ribbing for our mitten. So in order to do that, we're going to, and these numbers depend on what size you are knitting and maybe even your gauge if you've made adjustments, but you will need some stitch markers, and we're going to knit across 12 stitches. So I'm going to knit across 12. And we're going to place one of our stitch markers. This is our setup round, by the way. And then we're going to knit another 12 stitches. Six. We need another 6 stitches on this other side. And if you're not familiar with magic loop knitting, I do have a blog post all about it, so you can go check that out on I'll have it in the description, but it's on the blog. So another 6 stitches. Six. Okay, so now we have 12 stitches, 12 stitches, 12 stitches divided by stitch markers. So we're going to knit to the end of this round. Oops. And these are knit quite tight because we want them to be warm, right? For winter. All right, so starting on our second round, so I know that that's the second round without a stitch marker just because my tail is on this side, right? So all right, so in order to do the increases for the thumb, so we do increases every other round for this thumb gusset, right? And we're only going to make those increases on the outside of these stitch markers. We are not going to make the increases for the thumb. So if you look at it, where we have our stitch marker here, is where our thumb is. So we have our thumb separated, and we are not going to add stitch increases inside of these stitch markers, only on the outside. So for the first round, we're going to knit up to that stitch marker. That stitch is kind of sticking for me. So you knit right up to that marker. All right, so we're right up to that marker. We're gonna make one right. So in order to make one right, we take and we load this, if you see that, this yarn piece in between our stitches to the front of the needle, like that, not to the back, to the front of the needle. That's a make one right, okay? So we're gonna knit that. I'm gonna slip the marker. We're gonna knit just past the next marker, on the outside of that marker, remember? Okay, and we're going to slip that marker. We're going to make one left. So again, we find that yarn in between our stitches, that bar right there it's actually called, and we're going to lift it to the back of the needle. Did you see how I did that? We're not going to lift it to the front. We're going to lift it to the back of the needle like that. And then we're going to knit it through the back loop like that. Oops, I got a little piece of extra yarn in there. And then we're just going to knit to the end of the, I have other yarn pieces here. Okay, so we're going to knit to the end of the round. And then after that increase round, we're gonna just knit in a round, slipping the markers as we come to them. There's no increases every other round. So we've just done an increase, and we're going to increase the same amount of stitches that is actually inside of the stitch markers. So inside here we have 12 stitches. So we're gonna increase 12 stitches on either side of the markers here, because these are going to be put on hold, and we want to make sure that we keep the hand the same width around for the entire mitt. So if we didn't do those increases, we would have a very small circumference mitten, right? So that's why we're doing that. We're increasing stitches on this side of our thumb. So this is our thumb, and we're increasing on this side, so you can see these increases here, right? So we're increasing on this side of the thumb because the thumb is going to go on hold, so we're going to lose those stitches. So that's why we're increasing. So we're going to increase until we have the same number of thumb stitches. Whatever we're putting on hold, we need to increase on this side, this side of those stitch markers. I hope I'm making sense. If you're new at knit and making. So we're going to continue with those, an increase round followed by a knit round until we have increased 12 stitches, because we're going to put these stitches on hold, so we're going to lose 12 stitches, so we have to add, like I said before, right? And then by putting these on hold and increasing stitches on this side, we're going to keep the same amount of cast on stitches, so we can continue knitting in the round for the remainder of the mitt. So I'll meet you back for another increase round. I'm going to knit this round because you don't need to watch me knit, and then I'll show you how to increase just one more time. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've knit a round just so I could show you the increase round one more time. So I finished my knit round and I'm going to do an increase round. So again, we're going to knit up to that marker, and then we're going to do a make one right. All right, so we've knit up to that marker. I'm just going to get some yarn here. Now we're going to do a make one right. So again, we're going to find that bar in between our stitches, and we're going to load it to the front of the needle like that. And we're just going to knit it to the front, slip that marker, knit to the next marker and slip it. All right, we're going to slip that marker. We're going to do a make one left. So again, we're going to find that bar between our stitches. We're going to load it to the back of the needle like that, and we're going to knit it to the back loop. And that is a make one left. So we're going to knit to the end of the round, and that is how we're going to do the increases until we've increased 12 stitches. It'll be different for the different sizes, so definitely take a look at the pattern. It's available on my site. Okay, so that is how we're going to do our thumb gusset. So I'm going to leave you to increase your 12 stitches total on either side of these markers, remember, and then I'm going to meet you back here to put our thumb on hold and continue knitting in the round. All right, so we have done all of our increases, and now we are ready to put these thumb stitches on a piece of waste yarn. So I've got some waste yarn and a yarn needle here. So we're gonna knit up to that stitch marker, and we're gonna remove it, and we're gonna put those stitches on hold. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so we've got to that stitch marker, so we're just gonna push our needle up like that, remove that stitch marker, take our needle with our waste yarn, and we're just going to put them on the waste yarn. There we go. We're going to move their needle to the other side, and we're going to put these stitches on our waste yarn as well, because these are the thumb stitches, remember? And the thumb has to go on hold so we can knit the rest of the mitten. All right, so we're going to remove this marker now, and we're just going to take and put a knot in it just to be on the safe side of our waste yarn there. All right, so now our thumb stitches are on hold, and now we can continue working in the round. Okay. Yarn's all. There we go. Down, tangled it. Okay, so now we are going to start working in the round on these hand stitches now until we need to shape for our fingers. So you're going to knit in the round just like normal until it says in the pattern we're going to do the yarn decreases. So you want to make sure to pull this stitch very snugly, because you don't want a gap. You're going to have a gap no matter what. We are going to pick up a couple of stitches in the thumb to bridge that gap, but we still want it to be fairly snug so we don't have any more of a gap. And you're going to knit across. And this will be our first round of our hand stitches only, because our thumb is now on hold. So we just knit like normal, just the way that we have been doing. And I'll show you quickly what it looks like when we come back over to the thumb. All right, so I'm just going to show you quick. So there's our thumb stitches, and we do still have a little bit of gap there, even though we were kind of snug. Tightening that up, but don't worry, because we are going to pick up stitches to bridge that gap. You can weave your ends in all the way to the thumb pit, is what I like to call it, and just sew it closed a little bit more so you don't have any gaps or anything like that, and it just finishes it really nice, especially if you follow the direction of the stitches. You can't even tell that you have sewn the gap closed. So yeah, so just continue knitting in the round for your hand for however long the pattern calls for, and then I will show you how to do the finger decreases and knit the thumb. All right, so we have knit the length that we want for our mitten, and now we are ready to do the decreases for the mitten top. So in order to do that, we're going to start by knitting one, an SSK, and knitting to the last 3 stitches, knitting 2 together and knitting 1. on the front needle, and then we're going to do the same thing on the back needle. And then we're going to do a knit round with no decreases, and we're going to continue these 2 rounds until we have 16 stitches total, so 8 stitches on the front and the back needle. So currently we have 36 stitches for this particular size of mitten. And again, you can find the patterns on my website. It is Make One Right, so m1rknit.com. Okay, so we're going to do our first decrease round. And we're going to knit that first stitch, and then we're going to do an SSK. So that is a slip, slip, bring it back to the needle, knit through the back loop, and knit up to the last 3 stitches at the end of this row. Well, I guess it's not an entire half round, I guess, what we could say here. Knit up to the last 3 stitches. Okay, and then we're going to knit 2 together, like that, and then knit 1. And then we're going to go to the back needle. We're going to do the same for this side here. So again, we're going to knit 1. I was going to tighten this up here. Oop. Knit 1. And then an SSK, and then knit up to the last 3 stitches, okay, and then knit 2 together. And then knit 1, and we have completed our first decrease round. So the next round we're just going to knit all of the stitches, and then we're going to repeat that decrease round and the knit round until we have 16 stitches total. So there's 8 stitches on the front and 8 stitches on the back, and then we're going to Kitchener stitch those stitches together, and it will be closed and it'll be seamless and it'll be beautiful. So I'll do another decrease round. So I'm going to knit this round. Oop. And then I'll do another decrease round with you, just so you feel comfortable. Again, this is just a knit round. So we always space knit rounds in between decrease rounds. Okay, and then our decrease round. And again, that is a knit 1, SSK, knit to the last 3 stitches, knit the last 3 stitches, knit 2 together. I almost knit that. So I'm going to leave you there. Just continue in this fashion until you have 8 stitches on each needle, front and back, for 16 stitches total, and then I will show you how to do the Kitchener stitch. Great, so we've finished all of our decreases and knit rounds, and now we're ready to do the Kitchener stitch and close the top of our mitt. So in order to do that, you're going to take a nice long tail and cut it, because this is a sewn bind off, and we're going to use our yarn needle. And we're going to make sure that our needles are aligned, so we have 8 stitches in the back, 8 stitches in the front. So our needles, or our stitches are all kind of lined up here. And the yarn is in the back. Sorry, I was off camera. The yarn is in the back. And we're going to go through the front stitch first. So we're going to knit through the front stitch, and that comes off. And then we're going to take and purl through the second stitch and pull it all the way through. Snug it up. Then we're going to go to the back of the work, and we're going to go purl off, snug it up, and knit on through the back, like so. And then we're going to go front knit off, purl on. This is at the front. Then we're going to go to the back. We're going to purl off and knit on. Like that. And then knit. Then we're going to the front of the needle, knit on, purl off the front needle, and purl, and we're going to the back of the needle, purl off and knit on. And then we're going to continue doing that until we get to the very end. All right, sorry about that, my dog started barking. Okay, so we're at the back. Our working yarn is the back. We're going to go to the front, and we're going to go knit off, purl on. Then we're going to go to the back needle and purl off, knit on. Try to show you the best I can here. Oops, I got a knot. Here we go. And then we're going to the front of the work, and we're going to go knit off, purl on. It's the same way that we've been doing it. Nothing changes. It's this sequence the whole way through. So the back of the work, purl off, knit on, and snug it up a little bit, but not too tight. Oops, just wrapped it. Okay, and knit on, knit off, purl on the front needle. You're gonna go to the back needle and purl off, knit on. Knit off, purl on, front needle, purl off, back needle, and knit on, back needle. Okay, and then knit off for the last stitch, purl off. Like so. Let's snug it up, not too tight. Look at how pretty that is, right? And then we're going to weave this end so you don't get this dog ear. What I like to do is kind of like weave it through and kind of snug it up. Oops, sorry. Snug it up a little bit so you don't get that dog ear. Like that, see? Isn't that nice? And then just weave in the ends. So what I like to do is put my finger in there, and then you can weave in the ends however way you want. I'm just gonna do it this way really quick because I don't you want to watch that. Okay, here we go. Ta-da! Look at that. Now we have a nice, and it'll look even better after you block it, but isn't that nice? Pretty, pretty. Okay, so now that we are done that, we are going to start on the thumb. All right, so now we are ready to work the thumb stitches. So I forgot to film this part, but I have transferred these stitches from my waste yarn back onto my needles, and I am doing magic loop. So when you do magic loop, make sure that you load your stitches with the needles facing the same way, whether it's this way or that way, it doesn't matter as long as both of the needles are facing the same direction. I've done that and it's annoying. Okay, so, and I'm sorry, I've got a cold since I've worked the rest of the mitt, so I apologize for my voice right now. But anyway, so I have picked up these stitches like I said, and if you go like this, you're gonna find that there's a gap, right? So we are gonna pick up 2 extra stitches, 1 on each side, to close that gap. You don't have to pick them up. You can sew them. You can sew the gap closed if you want, just by leaving a long tail. The choice is yours. I like to pick up stitches to close that gap, and then what I do is decrease whatever stitches that I've picked up in the next round. So what I like to do actually is, and this might not be conventional, but what I like to do when I'm doing thumbs, I like to pick up the stitches like this. Instead of picking up stitches with the yarn that I'm going to rejoin, what I like to do is actually pick up an extra stitch actually in right on the mitt. So I'm going to pick up 1 on this side and 1 on this other side here, actually, which is the best way to pick this up, right there. So I picked up 2 extra stitches just like that, just to close that gap. And you can do it the other way if you like, but I like this way, so don't come at me if you've made lots of mitts. Okay, so now I can join in my yarn, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue with magic loops. So we're going to grab this needle and we're going to start knitting over here. So I should have had a longer cord cable here, but I don't. And because I picked up these stitches the way that I did, my leg is on the other side, so I don't want these, if I go through the front, it's going to twist this leg, because look at the way that it's loaded. So I want to make sure that if I accidentally picked up it the wrong way, that I don't want to twist these stitches. So I'm going to work this stitch in the back loop. I'm going to grab my working yarn and I'm just going to add it in like that. I'm gonna snug it up, and I like just to cross it over, make sure that I'm not knitting with my tail end, because I've done that many of times. Okay, so and just be conscious of like how these legs are aligned. So if you're not familiar with this, the leg farthest out is the leg that you're going to knit in, right? So this leg, if you look at this stitch here, this leg is further out, the back leg is further out than the front leg. So I want to make sure that I'm knitting in the back loop so my stitches are not twisted, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try to show you here. So if I go in this way, do you see that? It's not twisted, right? But if I go in this way, it twists a stitch. Do you see that? So I'm going to make sure to go through the back loop, knit through the back loop, and then on the next round you will knit normally through the front of the loop, if you've loaded your stitches wrong like I have. So we're just going to knit this first round, and like I said, so this one's not twisted. Like I said, you can decrease those stitches if you like, but you don't have to. Make sure that my tail is out of the way. And always snug up that first stitch, so then we don't have a ladder in between where our needles were. And it is a little finicky. See, this leg is further out at the front than it is the back. That means that we're going to knit through the front so we don't twist that stitch. Because when I load my stitches, I don't really pay attention. I just go for it. I'll be honest. This one, I don't think I've picked this one up quite right. So I'm going to fix that one. Oh, I missed it anyway, but oh well. Alright, so we have knit our first round. And like I said, you can choose to decrease those stitches if you want. So I picked up 2 stitches, so I need to decrease 2 stitches. So what I like to do is just knit those 2 together to decrease them. So for this first one, I'm going to snug that up, my tail out of the way. I'm going to snug up that first stitch, and then I'm going to knit through the front because we've repositioned those stitches so they're not twisted anymore. And I'm just going to knit 2 together. And this can be a little finicky. Oh, and I forgot to mention, because the thumb is such a tight circumference, you might want to needle up so then your stitches aren't, you know, really tight. So I have needled up for this pattern for the thumb. Some people don't have that problem. I do. I tend to really tighten up when I knit in the round. I think most people do, but okay. So I am back down to 6 stitches on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 based on this pattern. And this is a sample, so it will be different than the pattern that you're going to find on my website, which is m1rknit.com. It's a fabulous pattern. And this is just a little bit tight over here. I tightened it up too much. Anyway, we're just going to keep on knitting around. So we're going to knit up to the last 2 stitches, as we're going to decrease those stitches. Go. Last 2 stitches, and these ones are way too tight because I snugged them up too much, which I tend to do. There we go. So now we have 6 on both sides, which is for this particular sample, that's what we needed. And now we are just going to work in the round, knitting every round until our thumb is the length that we want it to be. So I'm going to knit right up to about there on my thumb, and then I'm going to bind off. And the way that we're going to bind off is just knit 2 together all the way around, and then draw your yarn through and close it off, and then weave in your end. But we will show you. So like I said, we're just going to knit in the round now until we get the length that we need. And for my thumb, I believe it was 1.5 inches or 1 inch. I can't remember, but I like to try it on as I go. So it's not a big deal. But like I said, we're just going to knit in the round. So I'll knit 1 more round with you. And then I'm going to pause the video and continue knitting on my own. See how we tighten up those stitches? That's why it's a good idea to needle up. I actually should have needled up maybe another needle size, because I tend to really tighten up when I'm knitting in the round. So it's a small circumference knitting, that is. And I should have a longer cable for this thumb, but that's what I found in my my bag. The first thing that I saw in my bag I grabbed. So, and you want to snug up that first stitch, but not too tight, just to prevent any laddering that might happen. See how tight those are compared to these other stitches? So I should have needled up a little bit more, but we're just gonna work at it. We're just gonna try to knit looser. And the thumb is a little bit finicky, so just allow yourself some patience and try to knit a little looser so you don't have ridiculously tight stitches like what I got going on here. All right, so I'm going to continue knitting in the round until I get the length of my mitt that I need. So I have a ways to go yet, right? So I always suggest trying your mitt on as you go, and then you get a perfect fit. Like my fingers are right here before I bound off. Like, you get the perfect fit if you just try it on as you go and make note about it. You know, like I did X amount of rounds before I did my Kitchener stitch, before I did my decreases, right? So, and that's the same for the thumb. You're just gonna continue knitting until it's the length that you want. Make a note of it so you know that you need to do the same amount of rounds for your second mitt. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video here and I'm gonna knit up my thumb, and then I will rejoin you to bind off. All right, so I have knit up my thumb and I'm just gonna do a fit test. I'm gonna try on the mitt very carefully. And I've got my thumb just poking out. And you could do another round if you want, or another 2 rounds, or maybe you want to bind off right now. That really depends on what your preference is. So I'm going to bind off right now, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to take and knit 2 together all the way around the thumb. So, and then what we're going to do is we are going to cut our yarn, and I've got my scissors handy here and a tapestry needle there, and we're just gonna draw the yarn through all of those stitches and tighten it up. So, but first we're gonna knit 2 together all the way around. And yes, this is kind of a little tricky. Try not to make it too tight. Go. I'll knit 2 together on this side as well. You must snug up that stitch, but not too tight when you're transferring over here. And like I said, it can be a little tricky. Small circumference knitting can be like that. All right, so now that we have knit 2 together all the way around, we're going to cut our yarn and leave a nice long tail so we can weave this in. Now I use this yarn just for the video, but for the pattern I've used Double Sunday by Sandisk Yarn, and it's really, really nice yarn. I actually really like it. Oh no, I just dropped the stitches off the back. That's okay. Just be really careful pulling it through, and then thread through those last stitches that I bunked off there. And now you're gonna snug it up, but not too tight, just like that, okay? And what I like to do, as we've got this tail too, but I like to put the mitt on. And then what I do, because I don't like these dog ears, they annoy me so much, so I just go and I weave in like that, and I pull it snug but not too tight, so then you don't have that ugly little nubby thing. And then I will weave in my ends like so. Hope you can see that good. It's just easier to put the mitt on. Weave in your ends. That's why it's really important to have a blunt needle so you don't stab yourself. Alright, so I'm gonna bring it through the thumb. I have such a nubby little thumb. Look at that. Isn't that funny looking? Okay. And cut it, your tail, and then now you're gonna weave in this end here. Like that. Do you see that we've got a bit of a gap? So that's why you want that tail, right? So even though we picked up those stitches, there's still a bit of a gap, but that is totally fixable. So you put your mitt back on, and then see that gap? Well, we're just going to thread our end through like so. There's no rhyme or reason, really. I mean, you can do a neater job, but I think that looks just fine. It looks really nice. It closes the gap. And then I'm going to weave in my ends after I've closed that gap. Sometimes I'll go back through one more time just because I'm a bit paranoid about gaps. I do the same things for my sweaters as well. Okay, look at that. We've got no gap, and we can now just weave back our end. Maybe a little overkill, but that's okay. And then we pull through the inside, and we can snip that tail. And now we have a cute little mitt. Oh, I forgot to grab my other mitt. But anyway, you have a cute little mitt. Look how funny my thumb is. It's so tiny. But anyway, we have a cute little mitt, set of mitts. I forgot to grab the other one that I've already completed. But yeah, you can find the pattern at m1rknit.com. My name is Kim. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. And go to my website, buy the pattern, support my work. Love you guys. Bye.